Your mother is just manipulating you. She can call a taxi." My daughter-in-law, Lisa's voice carried clearly through the phone I held in my trembling hand. I wasn't supposed to hear her, but she hadn't realized that my son Michael hadn't properly muted the call while they discussed my unreasonable request for a ride home after my hip replacement surgery. "Has your family member ever accused you of manipulation when you genuinely needed help? Has someone close to you dismissed your legitimate needs as attention-seeking? Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to know which city you're listening from, and if anything like this has happened to you. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this to you. My name is Eleanor Sinclair. I am 73 years old, and until that devastating phone call, I thought I knew what family meant. I was wrong. I had raised Michael on my own after his father walked out when he was just 5. For 35 years, I worked as a nurse at Memorial Hospital, often pulling double shifts to ensure Michael had everything he needed. When he wanted to attend that expensive private university, I took on weekend shifts at a nursing home to help with the tuition. When he needed money for his first apartment after college, I dipped into my modest savings without hesitation. I never saw any of it as sacrifice. This was simply what mothers do for their children. Michael met Lisa during his final year of business school. She was beautiful, ambitious, and came from a wealthy family, everything my son thought he wanted. From the beginning, there was a coolness in her manner toward me that I tried to ignore. She would scrutinize my small apartment when they visited, making comments about the quaint and retro furniture that had been in my family for generations. She'd ask pointed questions about my retirement savings and health insurance, as if assessing a financial liability. "Mom still loves that old job of hers," Michael would say with an indulgent smile. "Won't even think about retirement yet." The truth was, I couldn't afford to retire. After putting Michael through college and helping him establish his career, my own financial security had taken a back seat, but I never complained. I loved nursing, and my patients gave me the appreciation and warmth that was increasingly absent from my relationship with my son. After Michael and Lisa married, the visits became less frequent. When they bought a beautiful house in the suburbs with considerable help from Lisa's parents, I was invited for dinner only on major holidays, and even then, I felt like an intruder. Lisa would instruct me on where to sit, what not to touch, and would discreetly rearrange things after I had been in a room. "Mom, Lisa just likes things a certain way," Michael would explain when I mentioned her behavior. "She was raised differently than we were." 3 years into their marriage, they had their first child, my granddaughter Emma. I was overjoyed, expecting that a grandchild might bring us closer together. Instead, Lisa established rigid boundaries around my interactions with Emma. "We don't want Emma getting confused by different parenting approaches," Lisa explained when I offered to babysit. "It's better if we use only our approved sitters who follow our specific instructions." I was allowed brief, supervised visits that felt more like formal appointments than family gatherings. Each time I arrived, Lisa would run through a list of rules, what I could and couldn't say to Emma, what topics to avoid, what foods I shouldn't mention. Then came my diagnosis. After months of increasing pain, the doctor confirmed I needed a full hip replacement. The surgery would require a hospital stay, followed by weeks of rehabilitation. I would need help, something I had rarely asked for in my life. When I called Michael to explain the situation, he seemed distracted, half listening as I outlined the doctor's recommendations. "That's tough, Mom," he said. "But they have professional services for that kind of thing, right? People who come to the house and help out?" "Yes, but they're quite expensive," I explained. "My insurance only covers a portion. I was hoping I could stay with you and Lisa for just the first week after discharge. The guest room is on the first floor, so I wouldn't have to manage stairs." The silence that followed told me everything. "Let me talk to Lisa," he finally said. "I'll call you back." That's when I received the call, the one where I overheard Lisa's dismissive assessment of my needs. "She's been independent her whole life," Lisa said to Michael. "Suddenly she needs to move in with us? It's just a ploy for attention. She's jealous of the time you spend with Emma and me." "But it's major surgery," Michael replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "Your mother is manipulative," Lisa insisted. "Remember how she couldn't afford to fix her car last year, then suddenly found the money when we didn't offer? She's testing your loyalty. Stay firm." I felt sick as I listened. Is that how they saw me? As some calculating old woman manufacturing crises for attention? The car incident she mentioned had been a misunderstanding. I had been quoted an exorbitant repair price initially, but found an honest mechanic who charged far less. I had never tried to test my son. "Mom?" Michael's voice suddenly came through. Clearly he had taken me off mute. "Are you there?" I could barely speak. "Yes, I'm here." "About staying with us, it's just not a good time. Emma's been having sleep issues, and Lisa's parents are visiting soon. Maybe we could help you find a good home care service?" I swallowed hard. "I understand. Don't worry about it." "You're sure?" He sounded relieved, eager to end the conversation. "Yes, I'll figure something out. I had always been the problem solver in our family. Why stop now?" After hanging up, I sat in my silent apartment, feeling truly alone for the first time in my life. What hurt most wasn't their refusal to help, it was the realization that my son and his wife had constructed a narrative where I was the villain, a burden, a manipulator. The surgery was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I spent the weekend making arrangements, asking neighbors to collect my mail, scheduling grocery deliveries for when I returned home, researching the most affordable home care options. I called several old friends and colleagues, but most were either dealing with their own health issues or lived too far away to offer practical help. On Monday afternoon, my doorbell rang. It was Patricia, a nurse I had worked with for nearly 20 years before she moved to administration. "Eleanor, I heard about your surgery tomorrow. Why didn't you call me?" She embraced me carefully, her face etched with concern. "I didn't want to bother anyone," I admitted, inviting her in. Patricia shook her head as she surveyed my preparations, the meal containers in the freezer, the walker I had borrowed, the bathroom modifications I had attempted myself. "This is ridiculous," she declared. "You can't manage alone after hip surgery. Where is Michael in all this?" The question brought tears to my eyes. Patricia was one of the few people who knew the extent of what I had done for my son over the years. She had covered shifts for me when Michael had soccer tournaments, had listened to my proud stories about his accomplishments, had helped me calculate how to stretch my nursing salary to cover his college expenses. I explained what had happened, including the painful phone conversation I had overheard. Patricia's expression darkened. "That's not right, Eleanor, after everything you've done." She paused, then continued with determination. "I have a proposition for you." Patricia explained that she now directed a new post-surgical rehabilitation facility affiliated with our old hospital. "We have a private room available starting tomorrow. Your insurance will cover most of it, and I'll make sure the rest is taken care of through our financial assistance program." "I couldn't possibly," I began. "You can and you will," she interrupted. "Consider it repayment for all the times you covered for me when my kids were little. Remember when Tommy had chicken pox and you worked 5 doubles in a row so I could stay home with him?" The facility, Lakeside Recovery Center, was known for its excellent care and beautiful setting. I had referred many patients there but never imagined I would be a resident myself. "There's one more thing," Patricia added. "The center has been looking for a part-time patient advocate, someone who can help residents navigate their care plans and insurance issues. The position includes housing in one of our staff apartments. Once you've recovered, would you consider taking the job?" I was stunned. The opportunity would solve not just my immediate recovery needs, but also my longer-term housing concerns. My apartment lease was ending in 3 months, and the landlord had already notified tenants that rent would increase by 20%, an amount my fixed income couldn't absorb. "But I'm 73, I protested. "Aren't I too old?" Patricia laughed. "Your experience is exactly what we need. Many of our residents feel overwhelmed by the healthcare system. Having an advocate who understands both nursing and insurance would be invaluable." The next morning, as I prepared to leave for the hospital, I dialed his number. It went to voicemail. "Michael, it's Mom. I'm heading to the hospital now for the surgery. Everything's arranged for my recovery, so please don't worry. I just wanted to hear your voice before I went in. I love you." The surgery went well, though the recovery was more painful than I had anticipated. True to her word, Patricia had arranged everything. The private room at Lakeside was comfortable, overlooking a small garden where birds gathered at feeders. The staff was attentive, and many of the nurses remembered me from my years at Memorial. 3 days after my surgery, as I was working with a physical therapist in the center's rehabilitation gym, I looked up to see Michael standing in the doorway. His expression a mixture of confusion and concern. "Mom, what is this place? The hospital said you'd been discharged, but when I went to your apartment, you weren't there." I carefully lowered myself onto a nearby chair, breathing through the pain that still accompanied most movements. "I'm recovering here at Lakeside. It's a rehabilitation facility." "But how? Your insurance is covering most of it," I finished for him. "I have arrangements for the rest." Michael looked uncomfortable. He glanced around the well-appointed facility, taking in the state-of-the-art equipment and professional staff. "This place looks expensive." I nodded, not offering further explanation. Let him wonder. "I got your message," he continued. "I'm sorry I didn't call back right away. We've been busy with Emma's preschool applications." "I understand. You have your own life." The words came out flatter than I intended. An awkward silence stretched between us. Finally, Michael spoke again. "Lisa thinks maybe we could have you over for dinner once you're more mobile. In a few weeks, maybe?" I studied my son, this man I had raised, sacrificed for, loved with every fiber of my being. In his eyes, I saw not concern for my well-being, but relief that my situation had been resolved without requiring anything of him. "Michael," I began slowly, "there's something I need to tell you. I've accepted a position here at Lakeside once I've recovered. I'll be working as a patient advocate. The job includes an apartment on the grounds." "You're moving?" He looked genuinely shocked. "But your apartment?" "The lease is up in 3 months, and I can't afford the rent increase. This is a good solution for me." "But it's so sudden. Shouldn't we discuss this as a family?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like we discussed my recovery plan as a family?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Mom, about that. Lisa and I were just concerned about Emma's routine. It wasn't personal." "I heard what Lisa said on the phone," I said quietly. "About me being manipulative, about manufacturing problems to test your loyalty." Michael's face flushed. "You weren't supposed to hear that. Lisa sometimes exaggerates. She doesn't really think that." "Doesn't she?" I held his gaze. "Michael, I have never asked you for help lightly. I raised you alone, worked countless extra shifts to give you opportunities, postponed my own needs time and again, not because I expected repayment, but because that's what parents do. All I asked was for a safe place to recover for a few days." "Mom, let me finish," I continued, my voice steady. "You had every right to say no. What hurt was the assumption that my need wasn't genuine, that I was playing some kind of manipulative game." Michael looked at the floor. "I know you've done a lot for me." "Do you?" I asked. "Do you know I worked 2 jobs while you were in college? That I remortgaged my condo to help with your business school tuition? That I continued working well past when my colleagues retired because I depleted my savings helping you establish your career?" His head snapped up. "What? No, you never said—" "Of course I didn't. Parents don't itemize their sacrifices. We do what needs to be done, quietly, without keeping score." The physical therapist approached, indicating it was time to continue our session. I gripped my walker and slowly stood. "You don't have to move to this place," Michael said suddenly. "We could figure something out. Maybe you could stay with us temporarily after all, until you find a more affordable apartment." I shook my head firmly. "No, thank you. For the first time in decades, I'm making a decision based solely on what's best for me. The job is perfect. I can use my experience to help others, live in a supportive community, and maintain my independence." "But you'll be so far away. Emma will hardly see—" The irony of his concern about Emma's relationship with me, after years of limited, supervised visits, was almost too much to bear. I simply looked at him, letting the inconsistency of his words hang in the air. "I should get back to my therapy," I said finally. "I appreciate you coming to check on me." "Will you at least think about it? About coming to stay with us?" His voice carried an urgency I hadn't heard before. Was it genuine concern or merely guilt? "I've made my decision, Michael." I turned away, signaling the end of our conversation. Over the next few weeks, Michael called several times, each conversation following a similar pattern. He would express concern about my decision to move, suggest alternatives that centered on what was convenient for him and Lisa, then grow frustrated when I remained firm in my choice. Lisa never visited but sent a generic "get well" card signed by her and Emma. 6 weeks after my surgery, I moved into my new apartment on the Lakeside grounds. It was small but perfectly suited to my needs, with safety features for my continued recovery and a lovely view of the community garden. Patricia helped me furnish it with a mix of my own treasured possessions and a few new pieces that would accommodate my post-surgery limitations. My first day as the patient advocate was more fulfilling than I could have imagined. I spent hours with an elderly man who was struggling to understand his insurance coverage, helping him navigate the complex paperwork and advocating for services he was entitled to but didn't know how to request. By the end of our session, tears of gratitude shone in his eyes. "No one has ever taken the time to explain all this to me," he said, clasping my hand. "That's what I'm here for," I told him, feeling a sense of purpose I hadn't experienced in years. As the months passed, I built a new life at Lakeside. I made friends among the staff and residents, joined a book club that met in the community room, and even started a small container garden on my patio. My hip continued to strengthen, and I found I needed the walker less and less. Michael's calls became less frequent, and when I did hear from him, there was a stiffness to our conversations. He had expected me to eventually give in, to prioritize his convenience as I always had, and seemed unable to process that this time was different. In October, 3 months after I started my new job, he called with news. "Mom, we're moving to Boston. Lisa got a promotion with her company and they're transferring her to their headquarters there." "Congratulations to Lisa," I said, feeling a complex mixture of emotions. "When do you leave?" "Next month. It's all happening pretty fast. They're helping with relocation costs and have found us a great house in a good school district for Emma." An uncomfortable silence followed. "Mom," I was thinking, "maybe this would be a good time for you to reconsider your situation. Boston has excellent medical facilities, and we'll have a guest room. Maybe you could—" I cut him off gently but firmly. "Michael, I'm not moving to Boston. I have a job here, friends, a community. I'm happy." "But you'll be alone, no family nearby." "I haven't had family nearby in any meaningful sense for years," I said quietly. "You and Lisa made it clear long ago that my role in your lives was to be peripheral, convenient, requiring nothing. I've accepted that, and I've built a life that fulfills me." "That's not fair, Mom. We've been busy building our careers, raising Emma." "And I've been proud of your accomplishments," I assured him, "but I've also learned that I matter too. My needs, my happiness, my choices, they're valid and important, not just an inconvenience to be managed around your real life." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken recriminations. Finally, Michael spoke again. "Will you at least come visit us in Boston sometime?" "Perhaps," I said, not committing. "We'll see how things go." When we hung up, I sat on my patio, watching the sunset, reflecting on the journey that had brought me here. My son's betrayal, for that's what it had been, a betrayal of the unspoken covenant between parent and child, had wounded me deeply. But it had also freed me from the unbalanced relationship we had maintained for decades. Lisa sent a Christmas card that December with a formal family photo the three of them posed in front of their new Boston home, smiling stiffly. Inside was a brief, impersonal note about their new life and an open invitation to visit whenever you'd like, with no specific dates or genuine warmth. I sent Emma a personal gift. I thought she'd enjoy a children's book about a young girl who becomes a nurse, with a heartfelt note about how much I loved her. I received no acknowledgement, and I wondered if Lisa had even given it to her. As the second year in my new life began, I found unexpected joy in the community I had built. My colleagues at Lakeside had become like family, inviting me to holidays, celebrating birthdays, sharing the daily triumphs and challenges of our work. Patricia and I had weekly dinner dates where we reminisced about our nursing days and planned improvements to the patient advocacy program I now headed. Michael called occasionally on my birthday, on Mother's Day, at Christmas, but our conversations remained superficial. He would ask about my health, tell me superficial news about Emma's schooling or Lisa's latest accomplishment, then end the call quickly when silence fell. He never visited, despite several business trips to cities not far from me. The final breaking point came when I suffered a minor fall in my garden and needed a brief hospital stay. I hadn't called Michael. What was the point? But Patricia had, believing family should know. "Mom, why didn't you call me?" he demanded when he finally reached me by phone, 2 days after I'd returned to my apartment. "Because you're in Boston, and there was nothing you could do," I replied honestly. "I could have come to help. I could have—" "Could you have, Michael? Would you have?" I asked softly. When I needed a place to recover from major surgery, a planned, predictable need, you and Lisa decided it was too inconvenient. Why would I expect anything different for an unexpected emergency? His silence confirmed what we both knew. I'm fine, I continued. My friends here took care of everything. Patricia stayed with me the first night home. Marie from the book club has been bringing meals. Carl from maintenance installed additional grab bars in my bathroom. I have everything I need. They're not family, Michael said, his voice strained. Aren't they? I replied. Family is defined by actions, not just by blood. They show up when I need them. They see me as a whole person, not just as a potential burden or inconvenience. That conversation was over a year ago. Since then, my contact with Michael has dwindled to occasional text messages and a brief call at Christmas. I haven't met Lisa's new baby, my second grandchild, born 8 months ago. I sent a gift and received a formal thank you note, but no pictures, no FaceTime calls, no genuine inclusion in this new life chapter. And yet, I find I am happier than I've been in decades. At 75, I am valued for my experience and wisdom, surrounded by friends who genuinely care about me, engaged in meaningful work that makes a difference in people's lives. My calendar is full of book club meetings, community garden events, and coffee dates with friends. Last month, I even began teaching a class on patient advocacy at the local community college, passing on what I've learned to a new generation. Sometimes I wonder if Michael will ever understand what he lost, not just the practical support I provided for so many years, but the emotional richness that comes from a genuine, reciprocal relationship. Perhaps someday, when Emma is grown and he faces his own challenges of aging, he'll recognize the pattern he perpetuated. Or perhaps Lisa's influence will remain paramount, and he'll continue to see my independence as a rejection rather than the act of self-respect it truly was. Either way, I've made peace with my decision. I no longer wait by the phone hoping for his call. I no longer adjust my schedule in case he might want to visit. I no longer diminish myself to fit into the narrow space he and Lisa allotted me in their lives. My son refused to help me after surgery because his wife said I was manipulating, but he didn't know that this rejection would be the catalyst for my transformation from a woman who defined herself primarily as someone's mother to a woman who recognized her own intrinsic value. He didn't know that in trying to confine me to the role of the burdensome, needy parent, he would instead free me to discover my strength, my purpose, and my worth beyond motherhood. And he certainly didn't know that in losing me, he lost far more than a convenient source of support. He lost the opportunity to know the remarkable woman who had devoted her life to him not just as his mother, but as Eleanor Sinclair, a woman of compassion, resilience, and dignity who finally, at long last, chose herself. If you enjoyed my story, please don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss my new life stories. Your support means everything to me and helps me continue sharing these real experiences. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.